All of tonight's rescues are true stories. We've sometimes used actors or stuntmen, but everything you see and hear is based on the accounts of the people involved. They've helped us to reconstruct events as they happened. Tonight on 999, the woman who wouldn't give up, rescued after 6.5 hours under a capsized yacht. The man whose life was saved by London's helicopter medical service. And how you can save your own life if you get stuck in the snow. These dry ski slopes aren't the real thing, but they're okay for brushing up on technique before you head for the mountains. 650,000 of us go on an annual skiing holiday on the proper snow. Most of us return without injury or incident, which all adds to the sport's free and easy image. But all that fun may encourage a false sense of security. A mountain environment in the middle of winter is a more dangerous place than most people realize. And skiers should be prepared to survive potentially hostile conditions. On a good skiing day, as many as 22,000 people head for Scotland's ski resorts. It's by far the most popular of winter sports. White Corris Centre in Glencoe was the first commercial ski centre to be established in Scotland. That was back in 1960. But last winter alone, more than 30,000 people came to enjoy the facilities here.
Wish luck.
Nevertheless, the local ski patrol says it's only too easy to underestimate the dangers.
The thing to remember is that you're in a mountain environment, and you're in that mountain environment in bad weather. Skiing on your own increases the risk. Obviously, if you are on your own and you fall, injure yourself, there's no one there to report back.
Among the crowds at White Corris one Saturday just after Christmas was 36-year-old Bobby Anderson, a minister with the Church of Scotland, who'd been skiing for 2 years. He'd left his wife and children at home for the day. He's played here by an actor.
Bobby's been skiing for a couple of years. He took it up as a sport that he could do on his own. I was pleased he was going, he was pleased he was going. I told him not to hurry back, that we weren't doing anything, plenty of time, and off he went.
The mist conditions that day were bad, but not abnormally bad for Scottish skiing. The rule is that if you're going to get skiing in Scotland, you've got to be prepared to put up with bad weather. Rain, hail, sleet or snow.
£15. Right, right.
That day, Bobby would have found himself engulfed in dense mist as he went up on the toe. It would have been only too easy under those conditions to lose sight of other skiers. But Bobby evidently set off in what he hoped was the right direction.
It was quite easy to ski along, and once you're skiing, if you've perhaps got limited experience, very, very quickly you can move a reasonable distance in the mist and quite quickly become completely lost.
But around half an hour after Bobby went up, conditions deteriorated still further, and the decision was taken to stop all skiing and close the toe. As a last precaution, the ski patrol checked all the runs to make sure no skiers were left on the mountain. But they didn't find Bobby.
Peter, just let you know that's the mountain clear. We're making our way over to the access chairlift to go down, over.
Okay, Davey, I'm just coming too.
Bobby had become completely disorientated. Lost and confused, he'd gone down the wrong side of the mountain and was soon in dangerous territory, far beyond his capacity as a skier.
visibility was extremely bad, and the other thing was, of course, that by this time Bobby was nowhere near on an official run, had skied off onto wilderness terrain, and of course we very, very small chance of seeing him under those conditions.
Darkness fell soon after. By then, Bobby would have realized just how lost he'd become. He must have decided to try to climb back up to the ski toe, but by this time there was a howling gale and visibility was very poor. The climb must have taken him several hours.
Under these conditions, the killer, if you like, is the wind. That night, the wind chill factor would be very, very high.
Bobby became too exhausted to go any further. His only hope of survival was to build some kind of shelter. He didn't know much about mountain survival techniques, but he knew enough to try building a snow hole.
A snow hole is a means of getting out of the wind, and it can take any form. One can dig a hole straight down and lie in it, or dig a hole into a snowbank and crawl into it.
The snow hole was as good as he could make it. Bobby marked the spot by putting his skis in a cross, an internationally recognized distress signal. All he could do then was to bury himself inside and hope.
Our oldest child had gone to sleep, and then I was in the house with nothing else to distract me, and I certainly would have thought he'd be home by that time. So I set a time limit of 10 o'clock, and I thought if he's not home by then, I'm going to act.
By late evening, the ski patrol noticed that one vehicle was left in the car park and decided to contact the police.
I gathered together information about his car, looked up the local police number, and I think just before 10, I phoned them.
Hello, my name is Mrs. Anderson. I'm a bit worried about my husband.
When they gave me the definite news that his car was in that car park, that was the beginning of a nightmare. I remember I just kept saying, dear God, as the thought of what that meant ran through my mind, that he was stuck on the mountain, had been for some hours in the cold and the darkness.
It was extremely cold that night, snowing heavily. The risks of death are real, and people die from these reasons every winter in the Scottish Hills.
We started a fairly intensive search of the area. The ski patrol personnel went up at the mountain and skied down in a zigzag pattern, covering a lot of territory. The Glencoe rescue team were mainly concentrated in areas where we had trouble in the past, where people strayed away from the piste and got into difficulty. And they were operating in quite bad conditions. The avalanche risk was quite high.
I couldn't quite believe this was happening. The horror of what might be happening to Bobby was the main thing that struck me again and again. But I couldn't feel sentimental, or I knew I mustn't panic. So I felt I had to prepare myself for the fact that he might not come back. And one of the main things that ran through my mind was how dreadful it would be for the children, who are 8 and 6 and 2. The 2-year-old would have no memory of him at all. And I thought of how I would keep his memory alive for them.
Around 5 o'clock the following morning, the rescuers had to make a very difficult decision.
In the end, we decided we had done as much as we could under the circumstances, and we, really exposed the team to the kind of really the limit of safety, and we called the search off. You've got to weigh up the possibilities, the victim's survival against the capability of the team, against the conditions and the possible reinforcements you might get the next day. So it is a very difficult decision to make, knowing as you make that decision that someone might possibly be dying.
I decided at this point that I would be completely open with the children about what was happening. I told my 6-year-old daughter, I'll never forget the look of her face every bit of colour drained from her face, and her eyes grew enormous. She reached over to the fridge, which was just beside us, and took a magnet of Mickey Mouse skiing down a mountain, and she held it close and said, "I'm going to call this Daddy."
When the search was resumed on the Sunday, between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning, the visibility was clear to the top of the mountain, but the forecast for that day for the Sunday was extremely bad. So we had that opportunity of perhaps checking the hill in good visibility. Two of the patrollers, Stevie and Ian, took that opportunity to go up to the top of the mountain and start traversing the upper parts of the main runs. And it was on that traverse that they noticed something sticking out the snow across skis.
But during the night, several feet of snow had fallen, and there was now no trace of Bobby's makeshift shelter. No suggestion that he might still be alive.
At that stage, we were pessimistic and were expecting perhaps to look for someone who was going to be in a bad condition.
Done well.
It was against everybody's expectations that anyone could have survived the night, but he had.
We'll have you in a minute or two. Rescue to base. We'll get you the casualty. He's uninjured. Repeat, uninjured.
I've been holding myself together all day and all night, and when I was finally rescued, I began to let go, and that was almost uncontrollable. I couldn't hold on to myself anymore. I was just shivering. I was terrified. The whole experience began to hit me once I had some other people to talk to. I decided to dig a snow hole because I'd read in the papers and seen in television reports of climbers digging snow holes and surviving nights in the mountain in them. I realised some people survive and some people don't, and I hoped that I would be one of the ones that would survive. And I was frightened of falling asleep and just passing away with hypothermia in the night. I had passed out about 4 o'clock in the morning, I think, and the next thing I was conscious of was hearing birds singing, one or two birds calling to one another, and that was a lovely feeling. I felt like I was waking up in bed at home in a summer morning, and then slowly it dawned on me where I was, and at first I felt elated that I was still alive. I thought, well, I can feel something, I can hear something, I'm still alive, great.
Oh, get you this support.
There was about a foot of snow above my head. It drifted during the night. And then I got really terrified and managed, by digging down and digging up at the same time, to make a small hole to breathe through. And once the hole appeared, I could see blue sky. And that was a great moment to realise that it was daylight.
Well done.
Bobby was taken to hospital suffering from hypothermia and frostbite. Within 24 hours, though, he was allowed home with no permanent injury.
Some 15 to 20 minutes after finding him, the weather closed in again. Sunday ended up being a very bad day in terms of weather. High winds, mist, more snow, and if we hadn't had that weather window opportunity, it would have been very, very difficult to find him under the conditions which came in again on the Sunday.
I feel enormously grateful to all the people who looked for Bobby. I can't express what I feel in words for the people who went out to look for him and brought him back to us. If they hadn't gone out, he wouldn't be here.
Knowing how to build a snow hole certainly helped to save Robert Anderson's life. A properly built snow hole not only shields you from the elements, but it can help insulate you from the cold. It can be minus 10 degrees outside, but as much as plus 1 or 2 degrees inside. These sorts of survival techniques have never been more important. More and more people are climbing and walking as well as skiing. But the grim reality is that more than 30 people have died in the last 2 years in the Scottish mountains alone. These plastic survival bags can make the difference between life and death. They're light to carry. They're bright so they can easily be seen in the snow, and they only cost a few pounds. In fact, it might be a good idea to keep one in your car, because that's where the majority of us run the most risk of getting stuck in the snow. The experts at the Robert Gordon Institute in Aberdeen run a survival course for motorists. Survival, they say, is a matter of common sense. So follow these guidelines to stay safe and warm. Before you leave, put together your own survival kit from things you'll find around the house. A flask of hot water, waterproof clothing, Wellington boots, a sleeping bag, perhaps even some food and a shovel. All simple items, but any one of them could help save your life. If the worst does happen and your car gets stuck, don't try and go for help unless you can actually see where you're heading for. Every year there are terrible stories of people being found dead just yards from safety. Cars provide protection from the wind, wet and cold, so stay with your car. You'll probably have to do some work outside the car, like making sure the exhaust is clear. Then get back in the car, out of the cold, and run the engine and heater for 15 minutes out of every hour. Make this a routine that'll help keep you alert. But remember, always keep a window partly open for ventilation, in case exhaust fumes are being pumped inside by the car's heater. If you have to dig snow away from the car, be careful not to overexert yourself. Getting too hot will make you sweat, and this moisture next to the skin will reduce your body temperature. Take some layers off before you start to dig, and put them on again once you're back in the car. 25% of our body heat is lost through the head, so keep it covered. In an emergency, anything will do. It doesn't have to be a hat. And in extreme conditions, use the foam and vinyl from the car's upholstery to wrap around yourself under your clothes. A layer of newspaper inside the windows will improve the car's insulation. And remember that a carrier bag or dustbin liner will help to keep your feet warm and dry. Filled with snow, a bag can also stop the wind getting through a gap in the bodywork or broken windows. And tied to a car aerial, it'll help rescuers find you, even in deep snowdrifts. People have been known to survive in their cars for days by following this advice. But even in the worst conditions, it's very unusual to be stranded for more than 24 hours. So sit tight and wait for help to arrive.
Last week on 999, we saw how Dr. Gareth Davies and the Helicopter Emergency Medical Service rescued Danny Cole, a construction worker who'd been crushed in an accident on a building site. After being given life-saving treatment on the scene, Danny was flown back to the trauma unit at the Royal London Hospital to begin his recovery. During the flight, the doctor, Gareth Davies, radioed ahead to alert the trauma team about Danny's condition. They gathered here in the resuscitation room, where they continued to fight for his life. From here, he was moved to intensive care, which is where we pick up the story this week. It's the day after the accident, and Danny Cole is still unconscious.
Trauma is basically a mechanical injury. Somebody who's been run over by a car, or involved in a car crash, or jumped off a building or pushed under a train. These individuals have sustained injuries from that, and that's what we call traumatic injury. I have to say, to come in this morning and see how he is a big surprise. I mean, he's doing a lot better than most people predicted. The main problem is the rib fractures that he has have damaged the lungs underneath.
The lungs are damaged, but badly?
Well, not as badly as we thought. Fingers crossed if he keeps making this progress.
So the lungs at the moment are...
Then we're doing the breathing for him, but we're not having to support the function as much as we expected. What happens is when the lungs are damaged, they actually swell up, just like if you twist your ankle, it swells up over the next 24 hours. The lungs do the same, but the lungs have to oxygenate the blood. That's their function. He's very lucky to be alive, I think, considering the vehicle that he was run over by. He's very lucky to be here.
Yeah, he's a strong man.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, strong and lovely.
Okay, Dan, you're doing fine. All right, just relax, Dan. You're doing great, sir. Keep going, Dan. Grip your hand, Dan. All right, mate. Okay.
I honestly thought he wouldn't live. I didn't think he'd survive, because the day we came up, when I'd heard about the accident, and I was scared to come into the hospital, I waited outside till they went in and to see if he was still alive. And for the first, I can't remember how long, I'm all confused with the dates and all that, but for the first few weeks I just thought, you know, I wasn't going to make it. It's a miracle, really. I like calling my Incredible Hulk. Really, it is a marvellous recovery, isn't it? I can't believe it, how quick he has, you know, well, not completely recovered. He's got a way to go till he gets his strength back and that. Not getting too tired, are you?
It's now 8 weeks since the accident and Danny's ready to leave hospital. He's still having problems speaking, but he and Mary are in no doubt that without the rapid response of the helicopter and the treatment he received both on site and in hospital, he wouldn't be alive today.
The Danny that I knew from the beginning, as you saw in the film, had a big swollen head with a crushed chest. He was totally blue from the chest upwards because of all the congestion in his blood vessels. And you don't know what he looks like, what he sounds like, and to see him come back as an ordinary individual like he does now is very, very rewarding. In Danny's case, he had such severe respiratory difficulty. He was really in the sort of last throes of departing this world. When you go to work in the morning, you know that some poor bugger is going to have an accident that's going to require the helicopter. And you find yourself wanting accidents, which is a big paradox, because, I mean, you don't want somebody to have an accident, but you want to do your job well. All the people that have worked up there have felt guilty about that. Sometimes the bell will go and they'll jump up and go, yes.
Next week, the helicopter team rescues a motorcyclist trapped under a lorry and a 12-year-old boy knocked down by a car on his way home from school.
Anyone with small children knows how difficult it is to keep a close eye on them all the time and how quickly and easily they can get into danger. Every year, thousands of children in this country have accidents bad enough for them to require hospital treatment. Around half those accidents happen in and around the home. A paddling pool like this one presents an obvious danger, but you know, children can drown in as little as an inch of water. Our lifesaver this week is Peter Clark, who found himself trying to revive 2-year-old Noel Fazakali when he got into trouble in his own backyard. For Peter, it awakened painful memories of an unsuccessful attempt to save the life of a heart attack victim. Noel and his mother Gina are played here by actors, but Peter Clark takes the part as himself.
Well, my wife and I had been for a walk in the afternoon, and we'd just come back, and we were sat there and having a cup of tea, when all of a sudden we could hear some shouting and running, and the sound was terrible, really, and all of a sudden it was on our doorstep. Somebody was knocking the door, and I got up and went to the door, and it was Gina, who was down the road, and she was banging that Noel was dead and that she needed help, and with that I ran down the road. She said that she'd been on the phone whilst Noel was playing in the garden. All of a sudden, she couldn't hear him. She rushed outside to see his feet sticking out of a dustbin, and she pulled him out, and he was soaking wet and he wasn't breathing. She laid him onto the settee and came running up to the door. I got into the front room and he was lying there. He was blue and he was wet and he was cold. I felt for a pulse and I couldn't feel one, so I started to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. I didn't think for a minute that he was going to come out of it. When I was a first aider, a few years ago, I had to try and resuscitate an older man who'd had a heart attack, and unfortunately I wasn't successful and he died. And I was very worried that the same thing was going to happen again with Noel. Fortunately, after a few lungfuls, and once he'd got the water out, he did start to breathe and start to get some colour back to him, and I felt very relieved, to say the least. I did have some fears that because he'd been unconscious for some time and not breathing, that he may well have suffered some brain damage. And for the time that he was in the hospital, I was worried. But when he came home, I needn't have had any of those thoughts at all, because he was as right as rain. We've been friends ever since, and he likes to come in and play table football. I'm just pleased that I managed to do the first aid course, and what I did actually helped.
The Ocean Village Marina in Southampton. Large yachts gather here at the start of the round-the-world races. The first stretch of open water that they reach on their way to the Atlantic is the Solent, a popular but sometimes treacherous channel that separates the mainland from the Isle of Wight. One day in December, Heidi Bell and two of her friends were due to sail the Solent on their way from Poole to Chichester in a trimaran, a three-hulled craft that's designed to be unsinkable. Although the winds were strong when they set out, Heidi was an experienced sailor and had no reason to think that before long she could be in danger, nor that she would experience something you don't expect with this outdoor life, claustrophobia. All three on board that day were accomplished sailors. Stephanie had an established reputation in offshore racing, and Heidi had crewed for her many times in all-women crews. The Tryharder's skipper was Nick Slocum.
I've done a fair amount of cruising sailing, not a great deal of racing sailing, and in fact this is my first year of multi-hull sailing and first year of multi-hull racing, in fact. Well, I hadn't known Heidi and Steph that long. I'd only met them for the first time this year in the Scottish Islands Peaks race, which we had raced against them and won, incidentally, and so beaten them, so we'd got to know them quite well from that point of view.
Tell me now, where do you want to go? Do you want to go down to the Needles, that passage, or should we take the north over there?
Needles!
Right, that will entail a jibe. Say the wind handles, Ross.
We had no indication that conditions would deteriorate significantly when we left the harbour. It was a beautiful day, in actual fact. It was very sunny, very clear. It was windy, but it was very clear. We were bowling along quite well until we got into a sea which had a cross element in it. And this was a sea coming in from the side as well as behind us, so there were two wave trains meeting. I've been out in conditions of that type before. I've raced in those conditions and cruised in those conditions before. But the waves were becoming very steep. I mean, I wasn't concerned for the situation because it wasn't a dangerous situation at that time. The danger occurred when we got into this cross sea.
We'll drop the main. Heidi, can you make fast on the jenny? And go forward, and we'll drop the main. One,
She felt as if she was going to recover, but wind and wave conditions coming up after that just pushed her beyond the point of no return. And then she capsized. We then looked out for Heidi. I'd seen her out of the corner of my eye as we capsized, but I really hadn't focused on her, so I didn't see where she was as the boat came over.
That's it, just lean against the boat, that's it. Get your feet on the net. Well done. Well done. Heidi! Heidi! Where are you?
I called and called and was looking for Heidi all around, and it was then that I had this awful sinking feeling that she might be underneath the hull, and she might be trapped underneath the hull. I couldn't hear anything. There was no sign of her anywhere. There was no sign of any clothing or anything like that. And that was a great worry.
Heidi! 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 Can you see her can you hear me? Where are you?
I suddenly realised I was actually trapped in the cockpit, and I just felt, you know, complete helplessness, really.
Heidi, can you hear me?
Yes! There's an air pocket!
Immense relief. Immense relief when I heard her call. It was fabulous.
God, she's all right.
I felt really excited and really relieved, but I also knew that I wasn't safe where I was.
Heidi, get out of the water!
Heidi was trapped by rigging. She could only pull herself further into the hull.
Are you out of the water?
Most of me!
I got myself on this little ledge. It was very cramped. There were sails and debris floating around. Everything was turned upside down.
There's debris floating everywhere here!
It was very dim, but I could just make out vague objects.
They found the trimaran's flare pack and felt they had the emergency under control.
I'm going to let off the flares! A parachute flare first!
I was bound to see it!
But it wasn't going to be that easy. Although these are usually busy waters, they were in for a long wait.
We used our flares accordingly, but weren't able to summon help. We spent 3 hours and nobody saw the parachute flares that we sent up.
Awful black thoughts go through your mind. Every now and then there'd be a crash up above of a big wave breaking over the boat, and I was really concerned that we'd drift in the waves and smash us up.
We were being washed down towards the Needles Channel. I was down to my last handheld red flare by then, and the Adept was coming down. It's a naval tug coming down that was en route for Portland.
Hold on there!
I held the flare as high as I possibly could in the hope that their watchman would see it, and he did.
Yarmouth Lifeboat, this is Solent Coast Guard, roger. Proceed to Dolphin Bank.
We have a capsized trimaran, 2 persons reported on the hull, and 1 trapped underneath.
Heidi! Good news! The camera is here!
I remember seeing spotlights, really bright lights, and that was quite comforting because I knew that, you know, help was there. I could hear it too. The whole boat was vibrating from the helicopter.
A search and rescue diver was lowered to make the first attempt to reach Heidi, who'd now been trapped for 3.5 hours. The responsibility for the operation now lay with one man, the coxswain of the lifeboat.
As we arrived, Miles jumped onto the hull with our radio, because we needed radio contact to see what the situation was.
There are 3 survivors, 2 on the hull, probably seeing, and...
Stephanie was taken off the hull, but Nick refused to go.
Most of all, I wanted to stay because Heidi was stuck down below.
Stay with you, I don't know.
I'd been on the hull for 3 hours, but I wanted to stay with the boat. I'm responsible for that craft.
It was now getting dark, and the weather was getting worse, making diving conditions dangerous. The diver couldn't get through to Heidi on his own. They began to consider a more drastic alternative.
Yankee, can we have an axe, please, and a saw? We may have to cut her out of the hull. Over.
When they started talking about chopping the hull, we realised that he couldn't get her out from underneath.
I've just been talking to the skip about cutting a hole in the hull to get Heidi out.
How far does Dave think the hull will settle if we chop a hole in it, over?
Don't cut the hole, prepare for towing. I was worried about the wielding of the axe. I was worried about the damage that Heidi could have suffered below. As soon as the hull was punctured, the seas would have poured in over the top of her. So I just weighed up the fact that it was the best way.
We've got to get in calm water, we've got to get a tow on straight away because the tide is taking us in the wrong direction, over.
This was the decision that I made, but I felt a lot of tension in myself, wondering if that was the right decision. We had to get round the Needles, no matter what.
Heidi! They're going to tow us!
I really was very scared, and that was when, you know, lots of horrible thoughts were going through my mind. I was like giving myself a 30% chance of survival. And I really did think that, you know, the odds were stacked up against me and I wasn't going to survive.
Okay, okay, fire! Fire!
The decision to tow might have been their best chance, but there was always the danger that Heidi might get sucked out of the hull and drown. Their ordeal would last another hour as they struggled against the tide around one of the most dangerous stretches of coastline in the country.
I couldn't hear it. There was quite a lot of noise going on, as you can imagine. And it must have been quite noisy inside the hull, too, for Heidi, so she probably couldn't hear me very well.
The water created a vacuum. It was actually sucking the air out. It was really alarming because I was thinking, you know, am I going to be able to breathe?
Heidi! You all right?
When we slowed down or stopped, we were drifting towards the rocky cliffs where we didn't want to go. It was imperative that we got this vessel into the east-going tide, and very quickly as we could.
Heidi! Can you hear her? Are you all right? Lie down! Lie down! You're all right?
Yes, I'm all right. Just keep going.
I really did feel like saying, no, just get me out now. But I knew the lifeboat coxswain was actually taking a big risk, but for my benefit to get me out, and I knew it wasn't easy for him.
I thought, well, she must be swirling around in the cabin. I was quite concerned that she could be dragged out through the hull into the cockpit, where she would have been surrounded in all the rigging and the sails.
Sometimes she won't reply, and we have to really belt on the hull to get a response from her.
I was trying to sort of think how she was holding on inside, just what her feelings were, whether she had faith in what we were doing. I was sort of reenacting myself underneath at the same time. I was just thinking, my goodness, Heidi, stay alive, otherwise I'm in terrible trouble.
I don't know whether there was a bit of telepathy going on between Dave Kennett and myself, but it was certainly something that was keeping me quiet and not complaining.
We need to go for it now, and 50 yards, we're going to be okay. Once we rounded the Needles, I was completely relaxed after that because we were home and dry.
This is Yarmouth Lifeboat. Yarmouth Lifeboat.
A Yarmouth lifeboat, this is Solent Coast Guard, over.
Please, could you arrange for the standby divers to meet us in Toddler Bay on our arrival as soon as possible? Over. The Yarmouth Lifeboat, this is Solent Coast Guard, roger. Are you saying that the casualty trapped in the hull is still alive? Over. Yes, Solent, that is correct. We are speaking to her now.
Heidi had now been trapped under the hull for 5 hours. 3 members of the Navy's elite area clearance diving unit had been called from Portsmouth to help in the rescue.
The first job any diver's got when he gets in the water to do a task is basically to carry out a very quick survey. I can then understand everything that he's seen because it's me that needs to formulate the plan. The diver carries that plan out.
But once again, the wreckage under the hull proved an impossible barrier.
There's too much rigging down there. My line keeps getting snagged. Have you got into it yet? No, I can't find the cabin door, that's all.
The first attempt failed because there was just too much sail, lines, rigging.
Then a cockpit that takes you down into the main cabin.
It was supposedly in common water, but it was still quite rough.
Take your time, do what you need to do, mate. You're the man down there, all right? Okay, mate, crack on then. Give it a...
This time, the diver tried a different route. Instead of approaching Heidi's air pocket from the rear of the trimaran, he tried from the side.
I could see this torchlight shining in the right direction for a change and getting brighter and brighter. And I knew that he was like aiming for me. And that was a wonderful feeling.
I had found the main cabin hatch. Got straight through that. I swam to the front searching and I'm thinking, where is she then? Where is she? I turned round. There she was, like...
Theo, hiya, you okay?
Thank you.
That's all right, that's all right. Okay, as long as you're okay. I've got a guideline here. I'm just going to secure this.
The air inside, what was left, really smelt, not even just from stale air, but whatever debris, if there was petrol in there or whatever, it really... she must have gone through some time breathing what she was breathing.
Billy, can you hear me? What's that? Push some air into the tail pocket, mate. Okay, all right. There's just extra air.
Okay, calm down, you're all right now.
I told her that if it was possible for her to duck dive, it would only be a few seconds of holding her breath in the water and out, and then she'd be on the surface.
You've got to hold your breath. Are you happy to do this?
Yes.
Okay, again, we go through the hatch here, and through the side, and then up to the surface.
Holding on to her, let's go for it. Down we went.
Come on, here we go.
Within a matter of 2-3 seconds after going down, she was gone. I managed to find her legs, thinking, now is she drowned? I was shaking her legs, and she didn't respond.
I ducked down and I thought, oh well, I'll go into the air pocket and take a breather there and then go for it.
But when Heidi ducked down for the second stage of the dive, she got into real trouble.
My hair got hooked up on something. I could actually see myself drowning under the water.
What's up, Billy?
I nearly died and I could still die and I hadn't survived yet. I was so scared I had to go back into the cockpit and regain my composure before I attempted it again because I really was scared.
Heidi lost her nerve a little bit for the first time that day, I would have thought. So that plan was out the window, so we quickly had a quick sort of regroup and decide what to do, and the next best thing was to get the search and rescue divers kit, which is a lot simpler than ours to use.
Tell Heidi we're going to bring her a diving set, a simple one. You know, the bottles on the back and a simple mouthpiece.
Look, just bring them down. I've never done it before, but I'm willing to try.
Okay, mate, down you go. You all right? Okay.
I was beginning to feel a bit concerned again about how I was going to get out. I could tell that it was going to be difficult just by all the activity up on the top.
Heidi had now been trapped for 6.5 hours. Her attempt to duck dive out had failed, and now she was too panicked to try again. The plan to use diving equipment had to work.
What we're going to do now, Heidi, is like you follow me, right, we're going to go through the hatch, right, I'm going to go out backwards, face me, and follow me out. You happy to do that? Okay? I've got it. Okay. Okay, Heidi, good. Relax. We've got it. Okay, relax.
Thank you.
The air just really hit me when I got pulled out. It just froze. And I just went bang, and my adrenaline level stopped. And I just gave up fighting. That was it. I was so relieved, and I just flopped. But I was just so happy.
She bobbed up in front of us and we hauled her up onto the upturned hull, much to our relief.
All of the Portsmouth divers received commendations for their part in Heidi's rescue.
I saw a silhouette of a person near the wheelhouse, and I knew that was the guy who had saved my life and had towed me for all that length of time. And I just thought, thank you so much. Whoever you are, thank you. very lucky to survive.
Next up, we're checking into one of the busiest airports in the UK. More chaos, confusion, and no doubt tantrums for the staff follow after the ads.